to my AuthorTube channel and merging into BookTube. And this week's video is a BookTube video. Do you like it? I actually just did my hair last week. It's a big change, but I love colors and bright things, and it just made me so happy that I've got a blue-purple balayage going on. So let's get down to my month's reads. I got in 4 different books, which is pretty good, but let's start with the first one. I would love to hold it up to you, but I don't have it because it was a library book. The first book that I'm going to talk about is Wonder Woman, written by Leigh Bardugo, who writes the Shadow of Bone trilogy and the Six of Crows duology. And I was very hesitant going into it because I loved the first movie so much and I did not want it to be ruined by the book. But I was pleasantly surprised. I found that the author captured the spirit, that Leigh Bardugo captured the spirit of Deanna very well, because the book starts with Deanna being on the island of Themyscira with the other Amazonians, and she sees as she's going for a race, which kind of reminded me of the beginning of the second movie, but I digress. So as she is racing to reach her goal of winning this race, she sees a shipwreck outside of the Themyscira bubble. And so she goes and checks it out and saves this girl who is about to die. And she brings her back to the island. The thing that she finds out is that this girl is a Warbringer, kind of like a cursed line that this girl comes from, that when the Warbringer is born, World War I erupts, World War II erupts, all these horrible things happen all over the world, and this is what this girl is. Her name is Alia. And from there, Deanna, what I did really enjoy about her character is that her struggle between trying to pick whether she should save Alia or save her island. Because Alia is on the island, chaos is erupting all over the island, and the Amazonians are getting sick because of her presence on the island. And so Deanna goes to the oracle that is on the island and asks what she should do with the girl. And of course, the obvious choice is to let her go, to get her off the island, let her fend for herself, but she is injured, and because Deanna has a heart that is brave and true, she decides to make her own path, and the oracle tells her of a way that the Warbringer could be neutralized, and if she brings her to these special springs in Greece. Now, the Warbringer is a descendant of Helen of Troy. I did enjoy how Deanna was struggling with that, with trying to choose between one person and her whole island, her whole family. But she did make the right choice in the end. I also really enjoyed how the author described when Deanna comes to New York. They find their way back to New York City, which is where Alia is from, before they go all the way back to Greece. And so I really enjoyed, and you know how in the movie, if you've seen the movie, it shows the wonder in her eyes and she's never seen a world like this. Well, the author did a very good job of describing those same things. And I really enjoyed some of the very deep insights that she wove into Deanna's perspective as an outsider coming into our type of culture and society. One particular one that struck me quite hard was when Deanna is walking around in the city and you have billboards of actors and models and actresses. Basically, they're all over the place, and so she asks if these are religious icons that people worship in the city. So that was kind of an interesting perspective of how, you know, in reality, these people that a lot of us fall prone to looking up to and idolizing, that's actually what we do. So that was an interesting insight on her part. And there were also perhaps 2 or 3 others that were quite beautiful and well put. I really did enjoy how also Lee handled race in this book, in the sense that she didn't try to force it down our throats, but the cast was very well diversified in skin color, in interests. So that was a nice part of the story that I enjoyed. The pacing of the plot was quite engaging. There were very few moments where it lagged. Actually, I don't even think it ever lagged, but I mean in the sense of quiet parts, and when there were quiet parts, it was also very engaging. I never felt like I was bored once while reading this. And there is a major betrayal at the end of the book that totally blindsided me, so I did enjoy that aspect. Weirdly enough, with this book, I was really trying to decide how I would rate it. I almost gave it 5 stars, but I'm going to go ahead and give it 4.5 stars. Two things. All the characters were extremely engaging. I loved all of them, except Alia. I kind of found her bland, and her being one of the main characters, as she is the Warbringer, she is the catalyst to all these people coming and trying to use her for their own gain. I thought that she perhaps should have more of a personality, but I did find her bland. And maybe it was because she was such a central focus point to the rising tension within the story and almost objectified because of her powers. That was one thing I found could have been stronger. The other thing was, this book is no masterpiece, I would say, in the least, but weirdly enough, it hit all the right points of making me smile, making me engage, just having fun reading it, but I wouldn't call it a masterpiece either, and I tend to reserve that for 5 stars, so that is the only reason why I'm giving it 4.5 stars. Sorry, those are the only 2 reasons why I'm giving it 4.5 stars, but it's very well deserved. So I highly recommend this book if you like adventure and just like a good, heroic, Grecian, Roman, epic conquest adventure type book that you would like. So the second read I had for April was, sorry, not April, May. I already did my April reads. Okay, for my May reads was Loonshots. This is so difficult to see because it is mostly a white cover, but you got this guy, and he is, on his back is a rocket going to the moon. The premise of this book really interested me, and it delivered, I must say. I gave a 5 stars. It is a nonfiction book, so I do have diverse tastes, let's just say that. I like pretty much everything, and even getting into a little bit of horror last year with Robert Piatone's work, that was a huge dive for me. But yes, this channel, you are going to get pretty much everything. So I read Loonshots. Basically, Loonshot is an idea that everyone thinks is crazy, that no one thinks is going to work, but yet it survives the ridicule of everyone and becomes the thing that propels us into the future. I think it has the official Loonshot. Goodness, I can't even find the official definition, but that's basically the definition. So Safi I hope I'm saying his name right, Safi Bakal. He is a biologist and a businessman, so it was very interesting to see business and science mixed together in this book. I would definitely say it is not a very simple book to read. There are quite a lot of phrases and not math formulas, but principle formulas that do bring it to a higher level of reading, but not so much that if you have some education, you're not completely lost. I was able to follow this very well. All the concepts that he talks about in his book concerning the ideas that win wars, cure diseases, and transform industries are very engaging, and he has a lot of different stories that he helps solidify his principles with that come from history. So me being a history buff and reading about all these interesting stories that I never knew about, you know, the stories behind the stories of history, the ones that are not rewritten history but the real history, yeah. So that was really interesting. to read, you know, what actually happened. Now, if you're interested in the principles that he does talk about, but are maybe not interested in getting to the book, I'm going to lay them out for you. And these are definitely life principles that I've come across through other writings, but this was just a very unique way of seeing it. And if you like this kind of stuff, I highly suggest this book. So the different principles that he does talk about in his book are: the long run is the goal. Hard work and determination pay off. Admitting failure is key to succeeding for future success. Having an open mind, innovation is key. Interdependence is necessary for the long-term success. What do I mean by interdependence? Well, think of it this way. If you're dependent, that would be like the baby stage, right? You can't live on your own. You can't do anything on your own. You are dependent on someone to do everything for you. And then as you get older and grow into an adult, independence is highly valued because you can do everything on your own. You don't need anybody, which can be very detrimental because in order to not for it to become a detriment, you need to kind of evolve into interdependence, which basically meaning that you can work alongside other people to bring ideas to fruition, and it's not all on your own. Now, I have to say the two greatest wow moments of this book were, one, listen to this very carefully. It is revolutionary. Not why did it fail or what was the failure, but why did the decision-making process lead to the failure? Okay, let that sink in a little bit. And the next wow moment of this book, which was toward the end of the book, was, why does the world speak English and not Chinese? Interesting, isn't it? Because think about it. I mean, if you know your history, you know that China was ahead of the West in everything. Printing press, fireworks, oh my goodness, so much stuff, medicine. They had everything. But he, interestingly, describes it that China kept it all within themselves and didn't become the think tank for all these ideas to implode onto the rest of the world. Whereas when you had Great Britain in the Industrial Revolution and even before that, Britain readily and heartily invited those from other countries with these ideas that revolutionized the world to come to them, and from there it disseminated into the world, and that is why the world speaks English. Now, I am very much paraphrasing what he said. Very interesting book, 5 stars, truly enjoyed it. I just finished this a couple days ago, Moll Flanders by Daniel Defoe. Goodness, I have never read a book where the protagonist had so much bad luck, bad outcomes ever. Like, this was incredible. I still haven't written my review for it, so I'm going off of what I remember, but basically it's written in first person, and this woman is reminiscing upon her life and how she went from being the ward of a family to being used by the men around her to establishing her foothold in society as a woman back in the, I think it's early 1800s. Don't quote me on that. You know, back then women didn't have obviously the independence that we have today. They were very limited in what they could do for work, and they relied very much on the marriages that they could, the men that they could capture into marriage, so that way, you know, they were safe. And so, goodness, this protagonist gets married 5 times. 5 times. And the second time the guy ends up being her brother. She just didn't know it because she was born in jail at the Newgate prison, and her mother gave birth there, and then she didn't see her mother after that. That's where she comes into being a ward of this other family. But she meets this guy later on in life. Turns out it's her brother, and she only finds out after she marries him, and they actually move to Virginia because he has a plantation, and his mother is there. And she starts talking to his mother, and turns out that all the facts line up, all the timeline lines up, and she's married to her brother. So that was quite the shocker. Did not see that coming. but there is way more story after that. Basically, she goes through 5 different marriages, but she comes to a point where she cannot marry anymore, or it's harder to find a husband, especially when you're past 40, and she actually gets into thievery. And where she ends up quite at the bottom of her rope, and a brush with death helps her turn her life around. Also, a minister comes and speaks with her, and she realizes that she needs to repent of her sins and actually make a decent and honest life for herself. And she does have a happy ending. She actually ends up back again with her 4th husband, very convoluted, and they end up back in Virginia, where they kind of keep a distance from her 2nd husband, which had turned out to be her brother. But she actually had 2 children with her brother. Sounds so weird saying it, but that's what it is. And she goes there and she sees that her son is still alive. And at the end of the book, her 2nd husband dies, and she gets to renew this relationship with her son, and it's a beautiful ending. So, happy ending, very crazy story, but it's interesting, and I give it a 3.5 stars. The writing style could be very outdated for a lot of readers. There's quite a bit of long sentence structure, lots of semicolons, also bigger paragraphs, more description, and you kind of have to expect that with a classic. But I did very much enjoy it, and I was able to follow it. But just for someone who may have a harder time with that writing, just to let you know it's there. And as I said, the story was engaging. It wasn't wow, but I did enjoy it. And again, what a crazy ride that this woman went through just to survive life back then. The last book of this month, which actually I am not quite finished yet, but by the time this video comes out, I will be done. Oh, I love this so much. It is one of my favorite series ever. It's the Dark Days Club series by Alison Goodman. It combines fantasy and Regency era. Think Jane Austen, but with fantasy. Oh, it's so amazing. And I love slow burn romances. Now, obviously, it's not fully romance. There's fantastical elements, but there is romance in here, and I just love the slow burn. One of my favorites ever. And yeah, goodness, this is my 2nd time rereading this. No, sorry. I'm rereading this for the first time after I read it several years ago, and I love it still so much, just as I did years ago. So if you like fantasy and historical fiction or that time period, this is the perfect series for you. There are moments where it's not always go, 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 but every scene gives detail, builds up the story in such an interesting way. And I do like the magic system in this and just the whole world that has been built into this. But basically, this is about a young girl. Her name is Lady Helen Rexall, and her mother was deemed a traitor to the crown. So she lives with her aunt and uncle, and they never talk about her mother ever. And she does have a brother. And she is getting ready to be presented to the queen, but turns out their kind of cousin who has been gone on the continent, that's Europe, for so long has come back, and he is not a wanted family relation by her aunt and uncle, but he is the one that holds all the answers to all these weird changes that she is feeling within herself. And turns out she is part of this Dark Days Club. You want to know what it is? Go ahead and read the book. I highly recommend this. 5 stars all the way. Excellent writing, pacing, character, slow burn romance. It's got everything. So go ahead and take a look at this. Get your hands on it. It's so good. So that is what I read for this month, and I'm going to quickly let you know what I'm going to read for this coming month of June. I'm super excited because I am part of the Olympic Readathon. This is my first Readathon ever. I've never done one before, but I got this from the Nerdy Narratives channel, which I will link down below. She is awesome. She also, like myself, has a lot of very diverse tastes, and man, she gets a lot of reading done. I don't know how she does it, but she does. Great for her. But definitely go and check out her channel and subscribe. She's just a wonderful booktuber, and I really enjoy her content weekly. So yes, the Olympic Readathon I got from her, and I really wanted to let you guys know about it too. So if you were interested in joining, you could join, but the deadline was the 24th of May, and I wanted to put out a second video last week to kind of get that going and let you guys know about it, but just didn't get around to it. It was just too much for last week. So maybe next year, I hope I will be able to share that with you guys. But basically, the Olympic Readathon is you get to choose the team that you want to be on, and you have to pick your favorite Greek or Roman god or goddess. So I chose Poseidon. He's the god of horses and water. So I actually have my own horse. I love horses and I do enjoy the water. That's why I chose him. Now there is actually a chart where you can pick different categories of books that you're going to read, and when you have read the book, you get points that go toward your team. So Team Poseidon, we're all going to read books and hopefully rack up our points so we could be the winning team for this month. We will see what happens. But I thought I would let you know what I'm going to read this month. It's a big stack. First one I'm going to be reading is The Guest List by Lucy Follett. And for this category is Hermes. It has to be a book on travel or vacation, and they do go to, I think it is Ireland, to go for a wedding. So it qualifies, you know, you're going out of North America. There you go. All right, so there's the guest list, and this is actually from Reese's Book Club, and I'm actually also reading this because I have a local book club. We meet over Zoom, and this is the book that we chose to read for the month of June. So I'm really interested in knowing what that's all about. It is a mystery, maybe a murder mystery. Yeah, it's a murder mystery, so that's fun. Something light and fluffy is going to be fun. Then I've got Crooked Kingdom. So I read Six of Crows. I read Six of Crows back in February, loved it so much, and I heard that this is even better, and I just cannot imagine how. So I'm so excited to read this. Again, this is also from my library, and for this one, I'm going to fulfill the next category, which is the last book of a duology or series, and this is it. Then I've got... Now, I do have one called The Young Elites by Maralie. That is waiting for me at the library right now, so I can't show you. I will put a little book cover here in the video, and that I'm sure will satisfy one of the categories. I'm not sure which one yet. Probably either Zeus or Hera, which is Zeus has a patriarchy in the book, or Hera has a matriarchy in the book. So we'll see which one that is. Then I have two that I actually have from my own collection. Yay! I'm reading my own books. I have so many books on my shelves, and I'm so excited to be getting into two of them. So I've got here The Mayflower by Nathaniel Philbrick, basically all about the pilgrims sailing on the Mayflower to America to start a new life. I think it's nonfiction or maybe historical fiction, but very, very accurate historical fiction, so we'll see how that is. And this fulfills the category of Poseidon, which is anything to do with seas, oceans, waters, rivers, anything with water. And obviously, they are across the Atlantic Ocean, so that qualifies. Then I've got The Gates of Zion by Bodhi Thone, and that satisfies the category of Eos, which is the first book in this series, and this is the first book in the Zion Chronicles. I'm reading this because I've had it on my shelves for a couple of years, and a good friend suggested, and she said she loved it, and she said I would love it. It is a historical fiction, something to do with the Holocaust, so we'll see what that's all about. Looking forward to getting into that. And the last book Actually, there might be another one. But, okay, last official book is I See You by Claire McIntosh. Now, this book I'm reading with the Rambling Readers. So that is Dark Between Pages, Nichi over at Dark Between Pages, Julie at The Hungry Bookworm, and Linda at Linda's World of Books, and Maralie with Sky's Book Blog. And we're reading this all together, and we're going to discuss it sometime the beginning of July. I don't know the date, so I can't share it with you, but that will be over at Linda's channel. So if you want to read this with us and then listen in on the discussion and, you know, discuss with us, we would love to have you there with us. So yeah, it seems like a thriller, like a psychological thriller, I think. But it sounds very interesting. And unfortunately, this does not complement any of the categories of my Olympic readathon. It does, like, I can get points for it. I think if I feature a category, it's 30 points per book, but because this does not work with any of the categories, it's 20 points, but whatever, it's 20 points, right? It's great. I am in the middle of actually not rereading, but listening to the audiobook for High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard. That book I read last year or 2 years ago, and it's definitely a book that I want to reread or listen to the audiobook of every year. Brendan Burchard is a life coach. I will also link his stuff down below. I highly appreciate every video that he puts out about habits that help you be the most efficient, but also he's not like a workaholic. He's just super balanced. I highly respect him and what he has to say. So if you want to check that down for just overall life coach, he's the guy for you. And then there is one that I'm reading. It's called Murder at the Abbey by Cassandra Clark, and it's an audiobook that I'm getting from my library, and I don't know if I can count an audiobook as a category. If I can, that would be cool, because then I could get an extra book in there without having to read it, because really I can only read a book a week, maybe 2 books a week if the books are thin enough, but that can be quite a chore. But I do want to get in as many books as I can for this readathon because Team Poseidon must win. Yes. So wish me well on my readathon, and maybe next year I can put out a video sooner to let you know about it, and then we could do it all together. Also, the Nerdy Narrative is doing this readathon as well, so go ahead and follow her with that. Yeah, so for the books that I have read this month, have you read any of them? What do you think? Do you have the same thoughts on them as I do? Or are there any of them that have caught your special attention? And for the books that I am reading this month, have you read any of them? And if so, tell me if you like them or not. It'll be interesting to see your responses to those. I wish you well for the coming week. This has been exciting. I really love talking about books as well as writing. So share down below in the comments. Like this video if you liked it. Subscribe to my channel if you like anything related to books, whether it's reading books or writing books. I am your girl. Take care.